Welcome to Not Factory Approved. Today I show how to replace the kingpin on a 1940s GM front suspension. Hope you enjoy.
It's a strange suspension. Up in there is the kingpin up against the backing of the brake drum. So we'll replace the kingpins and put it back together and hopefully get this thing tested. It's an ongoing battle, I can tell you. Now I have the proper kit here, which has to go into there. Piece of cake, right? Let's see what we can do. Tires off, drums off, they just pull off. And you have to undo these 4 bolts, hold the hub on, and the backing plate. And there's a remote chance that I can do this without taking it all apart. I will give it a shot. Unbolting the spindle is not an option. That makes sense. It's one assembly because they don't want bolt shearing and wheels falling off. So I have to take the hub off, which is no big deal, and the plate, the backing plate for the brakes, and then take the spindle apart with the kingpin in it. So there we go. Now work continues, and I may not have to take apart the spring in the A-arm, which would be nice. Backing plate off, hub off. Make sure you hang the backing plate so there's no strain on the hose. And now to keep going. I think there's caps in there. It looks like they're chiseled to make an indent. Keep them in. And that might be a problem. Let's have a look. If you don't drive this pin out, you can hammer on the bottom quite a bit, and you won't get any more than that kind of movement on the top, where it's just come up maybe a 32nd of an inch. So I think I'll remove that pin. It's hard to believe how much easier that comes out. There's the cap. We have a replacement of that in the kit. This comes out. See, it has that little keyway there. Get my thumb out of the way. It's where the pin was holding it. Not with one hand. Let me have a look at this. With the hammer, it moves much easier. Like that. That should be a shim in there somewhere. Okay. Progress. He squeaked. Old kingpin with bushing. Why it's missing that chunk, I have no idea. New kingpin. Locator notch there. This one has grooves, and this one does not. I'm going to check on that yet. But they look the same size. This bushing does not fit, so it's going to have to be reamed to make it fit. I have to do that very carefully because 2/1000ths over reaming makes a big difference. So these push down into here. I can use the press for that. So I will push these in, making sure that the hole matches the grease nipple, the Zerk fitting. And I believe they're both the same. One of my voices is just starting to go. I have to talk tomorrow. That won't be fun. So there's the 2 of them for one side. I got some little seals, and there's a bushing. There's 2 bushings. There's a bearing that goes on the top here, as well as a shim on the bottom. And I'll make sure about that in the owner's or the repair manual. Make sure about that in the shop manual. There's one kingpin assembly ready for, or stub assembly ready for reaming. Check the manual, and it says to put the bushings this direction. I'm not sure why. Definitely make sure that the grease nipple has access so that you can put grease in there. But the ones they show have another groove, And that's not these ones either. These ones are perfectly straight and smooth. So anyway, I put it, basically they said to put the groove to the outside. So that's what I did. And they're flush with the ends, which is what you want. Otherwise they don't line up properly with the Zerk fitting. And now to ream very carefully. If you don't have a reamer, I would definitely suggest getting one. You can possibly do this with a brake hone, but you're going to have to be really careful. One good part about a brake hone, though, is that it does take off very small amounts at a time. But you have to be careful with brass because it definitely wears out faster than steel. And so that's about it. You also have to watch with a brake hone because they tend to rock. So then you'll end up with beveling on each end. So you have to pull it in and out very straight. This is a reamer I bought many years ago. And I can't find it listed anywhere, but it seems like it's about 1/1000th per flat going around. And if you drive the blades up that way, it gets bigger. Well, that's what I'm doing. You can see in there, there's some polishing going on. It's getting bigger. So I'll just keep doing it, 3 flats at a time for now. And then when it starts to drop in, I'll start reducing it to 1 flat. And make sure it's all lubricated. And the instructions on this reamer say only clockwise direction, not counterclockwise, which makes sense because there's one sharp edge. So, onward. So this is the reamer almost all the way out, and I'm having a lot of trouble measuring it. You can measure across for distance, and I'm getting it's about 1/1000th per step. So it is, for instance, if the flat is here on the adjusting nut, you can see right there, there's the flat. Then I turn it one spot, is 1/1000th bigger. You have to make sure that the blades slide. So actually, if you turn this nut up on this reamer, and turn this nut up the same amount, then it should be in position, and it will be 1 thou wider, or bigger diameter. So that's the idea. I've gone through from the top, worked it down. What I would suggest, if you don't have the proper drawbar, which has got a handle each side coming through, then don't turn it more than half a turn. And when you're starting, don't turn it more than a quarter turn with a wrench, or it'll tend to go off to the side, and then you'll cut a groove in the bushing. So till it seats and gets started, and then you can do a half turn, and then once it starts getting out here, it's ready almost to come out, I will turn it a quarter of a turn, and I'll hold here with one hand to try and steady it. Make sure it comes out even. So the reamer has a taper to it, right? Because these slots, they can't help that. It has to taper. So it's very slight, but it is tapered. So I've got it adjusted so it drops in over halfway, and then I will pass it through the rest of the way. You don't want to take off too much at once. At least I don't. I don't trust myself. So do it bit by bit. It takes quite a while, but you have the satisfaction that you did it yourself. And you also know it's done right, or not. So I keep progressing. So it's getting very close now. That almost drops in there. It's just starting to grab. So I'll do 1 thou at a time until we get it. Okay, it fits, it's tight, but I think these bushings might be a little bit out of round with the reamer, because there's a bit of play there, not much, but it's really tight going down. So I'm not going to go any further on that. Clean it all up, and put the kingpin in.
Now for reassembly. There's the spindle. There's the hub. Right here's the spindle and the kingpin. And it's nice and tight in there. So now to put it all together, make sure everything fits with proper clearances. Grease it all up and hope it works. I would really like to put one of these shims in, at least two preferably, so that the bearing is not resting on the metal. But I really like to put the shims in so there's some protection between the bearing and the metal, especially up here where there is no bearing in that seam there. But there's no room. I'll just make absolute certain, but there we have it. I haven't put it right through yet, so there's a little play there, but it spins well so far. So I'll keep seeing if there's something I'm missing about this. So I was able to get two of the thinnest shims in. This is the one that it had in there before, which is fairly thick, so must be the bearing is just a little bit thicker. So I can work that in and now tap things into place. Make sure that the grease nipples are on the front so that the wheel is level with the stub. Otherwise you're going to have a really steep decambering, but that's pretty obvious if you put it on upside down, and the grease nipples will be towards the back. So line everything up, tap the kingpin in gently, lock it in place. So the pin is in. It's a little bit stiff, but I'm going to leave it like that. Steering's going to be a bit stiffer, I think, which is going to be a problem, but it'll wear out and it'll be loose. So I put some grease in. I'll put more in once everything's assembled. So O-rings go on the top there, and like a frost plug. So first the O-ring, then the plug, and then it gets hammered into position. Show ya. Put the O-ring in, but one thing to note is that there's one of these on each end, top and bottom, and an O-ring as well. And this one is perfectly sealed, and there's another one that has a notch. So this should go on the bottom, not the top, or it'll collect all sorts of dirt and grit. Why they have one on the bottom, I'm not completely sure. So in this car, the tie rod goes on the bottom, back to the steering. Then there's two spacers up top for the backing plate for the brakes. Line things up. One of them rolled away. I have to make a new one. It's kind of hard to believe, but I'm not aware of it rolling away. I can't find it anywhere. I'm sure it was there, but it's gone. So maybe it'll turn up once I move the car. Anyway, I made one, simple enough. So now I'll put everything back together. The caps are in, the top and bottom. I put the one with the slot down the bottom with the slot facing inward. And other than that, it's simple reassembly. So I went to the second side, the passenger side, and this one actually has very little play in it. So rather than taking that all apart and replacing the kingpin with a light duty car, I think I might just leave that. I don't see any reason to go through all that. It takes so long to hone out those bushings, ream out those bushings. And then you got to be so careful. My chances I could easily get it looser than that, which, like, I can't feel anything there. It's just like hardly nothing. So I think I'm going to leave that one. I've talked myself into it. Less work, sooner on the road. Well, I found it. I moved the jack stands. There it was, hiding. You can only escape for so long, usually until I make one. Just wanted to let you know that the car did pass its test. Some adventure there, but it's on the road legally and fun to drive. A little noisy, a little slow, but not often you get to drive a 47 Cadillac legally. It only took me 30 years. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, or even notify, or any of the above, or all of the above. Thank you.